Hey guys, what's up? It's Pluto here, and I thought I would go over the three co-ops that I had during my time at Northeastern, and kind of like what I learned from them and how I enjoyed them. And so let's scroll all the way down and get started with it. So my first co-op was in the summer of 2019, and that was working at Philips. Philips over in Andover, Massachusetts. And so I had to like drive there from my home, which was like in Central Mass, like an hour every day, to go to work. And then I was basically working on medical devices and adding a part of our code base to make it easier to do end-to-end testing with that device and with other devices. And so that was a pretty fun internship because I knew like I wanted to do more like systems level, more like Linux programs and systems level programming. And so this co-op kind of fit what I wanted to explore. And if you saw like my college video, the reason for that was like I was kind of getting like burnt out of like trying to do web dev because it just wasn't fitting what I was like wanting to do. Like I tried it with like Full Stack Open and other like online learn React, learn Express, learn Node.js. Like that wasn't cutting it for me. And so I took a C++ course, loved it, and then I aligned that for getting this internship. And basically, like the interview for this internship wasn't that bad. It was basically like all the C++ features and some like system programming questions. So it's basically like how would you create like a parent class and a child class? Why does do structures need to be like virtual? How do virtual functions work, et cetera, et cetera. And so basically just going through the C++ course made me successful for this interview. Also just having a background in Linux and software development also made me successful for this interview. And on the job is just a lot of programming and a lot of like talking with other teams. And yeah, it was a pretty fun internship because we had some other people on the team, and like the culture was pretty good in terms of being like work-life balance and letting us interns kind of just like roam around the office and like scoop food from like the tables of meetings that like overran, and it's just like out there getting like birthday cakes for birthdays. Like hanging out and playing ping pong, like after lunch. So it's a very like relaxed and enjoyable internship, and I definitely learned a lot and kind of cemented that I kind of wanted to go more down this systems path. Okay, so my next internship was in the summer of 2020, and this was interning for a company called Affirm Networks, and it had just been acquired by Microsoft. And so I got this job through my network. Basically, I was applying for jobs when COVID hit, and suddenly it was like the wild, wild west of companies like pulling out, canceling interviews, and stuff like that. So I was lucky and fortunate to have the network in place at this startup, Affirm Networks, and I was able to secure a position. And the icing on the top was that the startup had been bought by Microsoft. So I kind of got that on my resume. And so basically this was an interesting internship because it was a startup, and I was basically joining a special team, like an office of the CTO team. So it's more of like a exploratory, like skunkworks type team within the company. And basically I went from knowing like zero Kubernetes stuff and having like a basic understanding of like distributed systems to like writing operators for Kubernetes to handle deployment automation for like a complex app that's like spread across clusters. And so this co-op ended up being a bit short for outside reasons not related to the position, related to COVID. But even then, even though it was cut short, I definitely learned a lot. And I definitely got like a lot more confidence after this co-op because it was my second co-op, and I was able to like learn completely new technologies and still be very effective in them. So like I was able to learn Kubernetes and Golang and start like making like pull requests like within the first week of knowing like the language and the tools. So that was pretty cool. Yeah, the only part was like that. It was ended short because of some like circumstances. But overall, it was also my first time working remotely. Like this entire co-op was done remotely. There's no in-person component, and so that really set kind of like the tone for my final co-op, because I realized through this like I didn't want to work remotely. I'm a very social person, and I need like people in the office and like people to hang out with, and some decompression time of just like walking around and talking to people, and like having like lunch breaks. Yeah, that's actually something I want to mention about my first co-op. This co-op, my team had like a bunch of smart people, and I want to say like most of the learning was done during lunchtime, and not like for my job, but like just for being an employee. So like learning like the politics, learning like the inside details of like promotions and stuff, learning the politics of your team doing well and generating revenue for the company versus the politics of teams losing money for the companies and the restructuring that follows. Um, there was also an interesting part where like our team was fusing with a team from Germany, so learning a bit about that, and just like general like employee things of okay, here's how like benefits works, here's how stocks work, here's how like why you need to invest, here's what like an HSA thing is. So like by the time I started my full-time job, I was like done with benefits, done with all that HR stuff in like the first week, and I like had the confidence to know that like I'm in maxed it and everything. Um, so yeah, a lot of the learning through this internship was done through that lunch, like in person, just hanging around with the older employees and talking with them. Another part was there was like a lot of books. So like the culture for this company was very old school. So there's like a lot of books, and so in my downtime of this internship, when I wasn't actively working, um, instead of like going on YouTube or Reddit and stuff, I would go and grab a book and just like read through like C++ books and read through like software engineering books. And at the end of my co-op, this company ended up moving buildings, so from Andover to Cambridge, Massachusetts. And so I got to keep a lot of those CS books, and I still like leaf through them, some of them, to this day. And just having that culture of like reading books is so important for software engineers, because like YouTube videos and courses taught by professors can only teach you so much. A lot of the good stuff, a lot of the stuff that like still like sticks with me and like my philosophy towards engineering and programming comes from the books rather than like YouTube videos and from like my professors. So yeah, that was my first two co-ops, and then my final co-op was over at Vigilon, which had been bought by Motorola Solutions, I think, a year before I joined. So similar situation to this one with Affirm Networks, but a lot less recent. So it was like thoroughly like Motorola Solutions by this point. And it was basically back to, instead of like the cloud world, it was doing embedded systems again in C++. And so this was basically, I was working on security cameras that ran neural networks on the edge, and basically work on the C++ application that ran on the security cameras and handled interacting with the neural networks, and handled sort of like an application that would take those inputs and decide, okay, here's how I want to communicate with the cloud. Here's how I want to communicate with the local like security office and like the server that's running there, et cetera, et cetera. And so this one, oh yeah, let me talk about this interview. So since it was like still a startup, it was in the middle being acquired by Microsoft. The interview for this one was very relaxed. It was basically like working through a couple of programming questions on a like Google Drive document, and then basically like trivia about computer science and programming, and talking a lot about my first internship. And so the interview here was very similar to that. It was basically, since it started, like the interview was still during COVID times, it was done remotely, similar to this interview. So it was the same, where it was like talking about previous work experience, talking over my resume, and then kind of doing some sample like coding questions focused on the embedded C++ side of things. So like, how would you process a video file like frame by frame if all you got was like a buffer of bytes and stuff like that? And so that was a pretty fun interview process, and that was pretty easy, just because of like my previous experience with C++ and just like keeping fresh, up to date with it in the meantime. And yeah, so this one was an interesting co-op as well, because even though like it was billed to me as like in person, that's the reason why I chose this one for the most part, is because they're saying, okay, our office is in person because we are like a like a fundamental business or whatever, like where we get like a green light from the government to open before everybody else does. An essential business, sorry. So the office was open, and that was like part of the reason why I accepted the offer, was because it was kind of told to me that, yeah, people are coming into office, there's a social aspect, but it ended up being like everybody was working remotely anyways. And so I moved back into the city from home, from central Massachusetts, for like the first time since COVID, and a lot of my life was back to normal except for this work component. Like I was still like going to like intramural soccer games and like participating in student clubs in the university, but the work component wasn't there. People weren't showing up to office. And so that also kind of influenced my decision for my like full-time job after graduating. And yeah, I know I said internships, but I'll just talk about my full-time job real quick. Since there is some subtlety to this, whatever I say is not in the opinion of my employer. Microsoft, please. They're the huge company. Nothing I says reflects on it. And yeah, so I accepted this job while I was still working at Motorola, and similar interview process. You know the Microsoft interview process from the internet if you're watching this video. Like there's no secrets for a company this big. Yeah, I went through the interview process. It was all remote. I negotiated a remote start for this position because I knew COVID was still around from my Motorola Solutions co-op. And so basically I got a okay to work remotely for like the first couple months before I move over to Seattle, to Redmond. And so that's where I'm at right now. I'm currently working remotely for them, and I'm currently looking over to move to Seattle to work there full time in person. And yeah, that's how many months? 11, 19. Let's call it 20 months. Yeah, so that's my 20 months of interning in the computer science software engineering field. Hopefully you enjoyed me talking over each one of these positions. Let me show you my resume real quick. Okay, so this is the interview. This is the resume that I used for my full-time position. This is like the one that I used for the Microsoft one. I can just go over real quick. You have your education here, and then you have like all the bullet points for each of my co-ops. And so this kind of gives you like a good overview of, okay, Motorola Solutions, here's what I did. Microsoft or Affirm Networks, here's what I did. Philips, here's what I did. And yeah, I can't really talk about this too much because it's boring. There's like 10 billion resume videos out there. But I thought that I'll like throw that in there as a freebie because it is on my LinkedIn. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments or on like the Reddit page for this video, as this is probably going to be posted to Northeastern and CS majors. But yeah, this is Pseudo Pluto out. See you guys later. Bye.